In the heart of the Roman Republic, an ambitious young man named Gaius Julius Caesar came into his own. He was born into a family of patrician lineage, but one whose influence had waned. The air of Rome was thick with political intrigue, and the old order was crumbling under the weight of its own success. From an early age, Caesar possessed a mind as sharp as a gladiator's blade, and a charisma that could bend the will of a crowd. He spoke not with the dry formality of the old senators, but with a fire that ignited the passions of the common man, the plebeians who felt forgotten by the city's elite. He saw a republic stagnating, ruled by an aristocracy that clung to power with greedy, trembling hands. His early career was a dizzying ascent, marked by cunning and audacious risk. He allied himself with men of immense power and wealth, like the general Pompey the Great and the financier Crassus. Together they formed a secret alliance known as the First Triumvirate, a shadow government that pulled the strings of Rome from behind the scenes. This was not the path of a traditional Roman politician, but Caesar was never one for tradition. He spent money he didn't have, building spectacles and hosting games that endeared him to the masses. He knew that true power lay not in the Senate's decree, but in the hearts of the people. His greatest opportunity, however, came from beyond the city walls. He was given a governorship in Gaul, a vast and wild territory to the north, home to tribes that had long been a thorn in Rome's side. Most men saw this as a minor appointment, a place to gather some prestige before returning home. Caesar saw it as a canvas on which to paint his own legend. For nearly a decade he waged a brutal, relentless campaign. He did not just pacify the tribes, he conquered them. He built bridges in days that Romans believed would take months. He led his legions through forests and across treacherous rivers, facing down warriors who fought with a ferocity unlike any he had seen. The Gallic Wars were a crucible that forged not just a general, but an empire builder. With each victory, Caesar's fame grew. The dispatches he sent back to Rome, meticulously crafted to glorify his achievements, were read aloud in the Forum, and the citizens of Rome hung on every word. He had become more than a politician or a general, he was a hero. But with fame came fear. The Senate, led by his former ally Pompey, now saw Caesar not as a partner, but as a threat. His legions were fanatically loyal to him, not to the Republic. The senators, defenders of the old ways, knew that if Caesar returned to Rome with his army, the Republic as they knew it would be no more. They ordered him to disband his legions and return to the city as a private citizen. The message was clear: give up your power or be declared an enemy of the state. Caesar stood on the banks of the Rubicon, a small river that marked the boundary between his province and Italy proper. His legions were at his back, armored in bronze and steel, their standards a forest of polished eagle emblems. His mind was in turmoil. To cross the river was to commit an act of treason, to plunge Rome into a civil war that would rip the Republic apart. The very law he had sworn to uphold now demanded an impossible choice. He could surrender his life's work and face political oblivion, or he could seize his destiny. He looked across the shallow water to the land of his ancestors and uttered the immortal words, Alea iacta est. The die is cast. With that, he led his men across the Rubicon. The civil war had begun. Pompey, once his friend and now his greatest rival, fled Rome with many of the senators, unable to rally a defense against Caesar's swift advance. The war raged across the Roman world, from Greece to North Africa, a clash of two titans and two ideologies. Caesar's lightning-fast campaigns defied all conventional military strategy. His men were faster, more disciplined, and bound by a fierce loyalty to a man who fought alongside them, sharing their hardships and triumphs. At the Battle of Pharsalus in Greece, Caesar's outnumbered legions decisively defeated Pompey's forces. Pompey fled to Egypt, where he was brutally assassinated upon his arrival, a final, inglorious end to a once great man. With his enemies scattered and defeated, Caesar returned to Rome not as a conqueror, but as a master of the state. The Senate, bowing to the inevitable, declared him dictator, not for a year, but for life. He was a new kind of ruler, one who ruled with an iron fist wrapped in a velvet glove. He enacted sweeping reforms, forgiving debts, granting citizenship to provincials, and reorganizing the calendar. He was a visionary, but his vision was a kingdom, not a republic. He took on the trappings of a monarch, wearing a purple toga and sitting on a golden throne. For the old guard of the Senate, this was a step too far. They saw the republic, the system their ancestors had bled for, being dismantled piece by one man's unchecked ambition. A conspiracy was hatched, led by men who had once been his friends, men who believed they were saving the republic from a tyrant. Among them was Marcus Junius Brutus, a man Caesar had loved and trusted. On the Ides of March, 44 BC, Caesar entered the Senate House. He was presented with a petition, and as he began to read it, the conspirators drew their daggers. The first stabs came, a flurry of cold steel. He fought at first, but when he saw Brutus among his attackers, his will to resist left him. He looked upon the face of the man he considered a son, and, with a final gasp, uttered his famous, heartbroken words, "Et tu, Brute, and you, Brutus?" He fell at the base of a statue of his former rival, Pompey. The conspirators believed they had saved the Republic, but they had only plunged it into chaos. The people who had loved Caesar were enraged. His death did not restore the old order. It accelerated its final collapse. The Republic was dead, and from the ashes of the civil war that followed, a new world would rise, the Roman Empire, built upon the foundations laid by the very man they had killed to prevent it. His legacy was not just of conquest, but of a complete and irreversible transformation of the Roman world, a testament to the power of a single, extraordinary will.